Hello everyone, this is Tim, and today I'm going to answer an email that I got a long time ago by a user called Tipigi, T-I-P-I-G-I, and this user has actually sent me something in the mail, and I was very thankful to get. It was the Dune RPG. I was very happy to get it, but it made me think, like, wait a minute, I remember that name from somewhere. So I went back and looked at one of my notepad files. Basically, here's a bunch of YouTube videos you can make in the future. So I finally got a chance to do it, so I'm going to do it now. It's dealing with character ability versus player ability. And I'm going to read the email. First off, I really enjoy your videos. Please keep up the great work. One topic I'd like to see you cover as a GM is player intelligence versus character intelligence. In the 30+ years I've played RPGs, it seems many players have a hard time with this one. If a player has a low int, they shouldn't be able to come up with a great plan. If the character has a high intelligence and a high tactics-like skill, should I allow a player to simply say, my guy is smart enough that he comes up with a plan, which is lame in my opinion. And roll, or so I say, no, tell me what you're doing. One of my players tries to do this, and I really didn't know how to handle the situation. His argument was that his character also had a high mechanic skill, and if I had him roll to fix his character, I wouldn't demand that he explain how he's changing the pistons or putting it in a new gasket, things, basically skills that the character has that the player doesn't. I would just have him roll. And he was right, so in his mind, he should be able to just make a tactics roll and let me explain what he does. He said that his character has genius-like IQ, and he doesn't, which made all of us laugh. In a way, I get his point, but it still seems lame to me. The players should come up with their own ideas. How would you handle this? Thanks again for the videos, and take care. Mark from Portland, Oregon. So Mark, this is an interesting idea because before getting into the old school Renaissance, I think, it was very different. I had a different opinion on this. I had a different thought process. And I think I've talked a little bit about player ability versus character ability in the past in other videos, but I don't think I've ever done one just of that idea. So as a GM, you want your players to come up with cool ideas. You want them to roleplay in very, sparkling manner. You want them to bring enjoyment to the table. You want them to just embody the character and, talk in voices if that's their thing. You want them to do all those things. When you think about a player really getting into it versus just the die roll on the table, those two, I'm definitely going to pick the one where I have the player that's trying to come up with unique ideas, trying to get into character, those sorts of things. I want people to engage the game. I want them to engage me. Even if it's more of a casual style game, I want them to still come up with cool ideas and to try to do different things. They might describe it differently. Maybe they just use descriptive text, just words, like my character does this thing in such a unique way, where I basically come at a problem from a different direction than you expected them to. Those sorts of things. And that is definitely player ability. So with character ability, I see what you're saying as well, though, that sometimes characters have abilities that you don't. Like, for instance, in my A Song of Ice and Fire game, my character Burton is very good at manipulating people, using all the different elements of politics to his favor. And sometimes I think that my actions as a player perhaps are things that my character wouldn't actually do. He would see the downfalls of some of these decisions and choices. But I think that's part of it too, is that it was my choice to make a lot of these decisions, and the character has to suffer for them. So I'm kind of conflicted on which way to go on this topic. I love when players have really strong presence at the table. I like when they bring their A game. I like when they surprise me. And I don't know if that would happen as much if I just left it to a die roll, because then it would just be me filling in the gaps that the player didn't have. And that's another interesting thing. you were talking about like engineering and pistons, and maybe your character doesn't know, maybe you don't know anything about that. Well, the thing is, maybe the GM doesn't know anything about that either. So, like, my father worked for General Motors for a long time, so I have a sort of inkling of as far as how engines work and dyes and folding sheet metal and things like that. But some people might not have any clue as far as that goes. So I think at the table you just have to realize that there are times when no one at the table has any knowledge about certain things, and just sort of pool your knowledge. Maybe you have a guy who is a total gearhead and works on his engine every weekend. That would be the guy to be a reference at the table, like, hey, we're working on this engine in game, you're sitting at the table right here. How would you do that? Maybe his character would do it like you would. So pull your resources. So, but let me just get back to the question at hand. Is player ability bad when your stats suggest otherwise? Well, I've done another video where I talked about how stats are guidelines. Yes, I think they should affect how you roleplay your character. Yes, I think that if you have like a 3 intelligence character, you're not going to come up with a very detailed, nefarious plot with 5 different things moving at the same time to come at the same end. 5 different converging plans, and it can be really complex. But depending on what set of rules you have, sometimes stats are described differently. So that's something you need to look into if that's the case. So I don't know. Maybe I'll throw it out to my audience out there. Do you guys have a preference on character ability versus player ability, and sometimes where things don't line up right? Where, yes, you do want them, the player themselves, to have that ability and show it off at the table. I think that's more interesting. I think if you hold someone down and say you shouldn't be able to do that, I don't know. I think with me, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that there are times when I would maybe check a player's idea, like, well, that's a really cool idea, but your character probably wouldn't be able to come up with it. How about you roll a dice roll, and if you roll high enough, I'll let it happen. Maybe some sort of compromise in between there. Or maybe you think that the character's idea, or I'm sorry, the player's idea is something that the character wouldn't ever do. They would know better. I think I've had players, roll an intelligence roll or roll a wisdom roll just to see, maybe if they understand that it might not be the best choice of action for them, or their character wouldn't do that. But again, that's just the GM's perspective as well. Maybe you as the player think, you know what, dude, I'm totally doing this. I don't care if the character would or not. I think this is going to be the most fun. So when we're making these YouTube videos and we like to classify ourselves with labels and put each other in different camps and cliques and groups and so forth, and for some aspect of things, I think that is good because it describes what and who you are at the table, you as a gamer. But I think they can also be very divisive, and I think sometimes it just comes down to your table, the people you have, and the situations they put you in as a GM. You need to work it out. You need to find out what works for your group. For my table, if I was in situations like this, like I said, I think I would prefer the creative player ability versus holding them back because of their characters. But I'm somewhere in the middle. There will be some dice rolling at times. There would be things where I would like, hey man, it's just you made your character with that weakness, and that weakness is coming up. So maybe the situation isn't where you could shine. If it's called a weakness for a reason. If you did use a method of selecting where your stats are, if it comes down to the fact that, okay, that's the stat we're dealing with, it sucks to be you. That's your weakness. You have to roll through it and hopefully get out the other side, or make a new character if that's the case. If it goes badly for you. So, what do you guys think? Are you more of a player ability type person, Or are you more of a, well, whatever's on the character sheet, that's what, it's set in stone, concrete's chiseled on your character sheet. You have to follow that. You know, I'm sure there's people who have different opinions on different things like that. So yeah, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. This is a long way of saying that probably in the middle, but I probably lean a little bit more towards player ability. I think that's more fun, more entertaining than just seeing a dice roll with the table. Okay, guys, thanks a lot.